Sea of Solitude is an exploration, story-based game that makes you fight evil giant monsters. Except, wait for it, the monsters are actually metaphors for something deeper. Insane. I know. In all reality, this game should just be called Family Problems, the game. Most of the game surrounds this one family and all their issues. Each of the monsters represents a member of the family, and the game invites you to explore the joy of a family falling apart. Finally, just what I was searching to do in my free time. This game is a slightly evolved version of a walking simulator. There are more gameplay elements than many walking simulators I've played, but if you're looking for exciting gameplay moments, then this is not the game for you. There are some exciting chase moments where you have to avoid Whale, one of the evil enemies within the game, who will eat you repeatedly, or some other moments where some suspense is built through the kiting of enemies. Luckily for me, I was a Call of Duty Zombies expert, so these sections were clearly very easy for me. I personally bought the game because it kind of looked like Shadow of the Colossus. I expected some interesting boss fights as you take down these evil-looking monsters. However, that did not really happen. The story and the environment and the visuals clearly take center stage over the actual gameplay, and that's okay for me. I wish I had known that going into the game, but to be fair, I did basically no research about the game, so I guess I deserve whatever I get. Plus, I bought it on sale for like $6, and it didn't give me diarrhea like if I spent that money at Arby's, so that's a plus. How does Arby's still exist? The aesthetics of the game are undeniably beautiful. It's a work of art, no doubt. The design of the main character and all the monsters are top-notch. Little details like the footprints and the eyes add to the overall feeling within the game. It's a perfect complement to the storyline. The lighting, weather, water physics, and environments all fit into the emotion that the storyline is trying to present to you at any given moment. Sunny's section seems to be the best example of this, as the school portrays this horrible sense of foreboding as you progress through it. This massive crow, which is a classic metaphor for death, hovering over the top of the building. As you learn more about Sunny and what he went through, you can really appreciate these little details that connect the storyline with the rest of the game. This is clearly a strong point of the game, and it additionally makes you empathize with Sunny and the rest of the characters a great deal more. However, one thing that takes away from the emotional development of the characters is the voice acting, especially the main character. She is generally not good, and she's the one that you have to hear the most. The accent might be the problem.
I had no idea. Why didn't you tell me?
I don't mean to come off as racist, but it's also about her performance as well. One big piece is that she narrates every single moment of the game. There are only a few moments where the main character doesn't feel the need to voice her confusion over a situation. It gets really tiresome. She repeatedly mentions the gooey light. What does she call it? She calls it glowy. She repeatedly mentions glowy or the girl, and she says, "What? What's going on? Who's that? Is that my mom?" Over and over and over again. She's hand-holding you through how you're supposed to feel, and it just gets insulting. Many times the way you're supposed to feel as the player is obvious, and yet she still tells you, just in case you're a moron. I know that Sunny's section is heart-wrenching. You don't need to explain it to me. And also, there's all these parts in the game where she's screaming. It's really bad. Some of the metaphors are a little on the nose, such as the literal baggage passed down to a child from her family, which is shown through, get this, a bag. Or the shell monster who's actually the main character, but trying to defend themselves with, hold your horses, a shell. How intellectual! Another issue I have revolves around the story. Trauma is a fact of life, but when it gets dramatized into every member of a family in such an over-the-top fashion, such as bullying, neglect, work obsession, divorce, suicide, and toxic relationships, and more. It just gets a little dumb. There can only be so much drama added into one game until it makes the game seem stupid and takes away from the actual trauma itself. It's kind of like that one friend who always has a crazy party story to tell you whenever they see you about how they got totally wasted and made out with this chick, and then they woke up the next day and they couldn't find their phone and it was nuts. At first, as you listen to their stories, you're really interested. But after the third or the fourth or the fifth or the sixth story, the excitement starts to go away and instead is replaced with indifference. This is what happens with the trauma of the main character as well in Sea of Solitude. I wish the game focused more on one aspect of the family's issues and really explored it rather than just trying to touch on a whole bunch of issues. By doing that, it takes away from all of those issues because they feel like they're not important. Also, the game is pretty anti-male. I don't want to sound like a total neckbeard, but that gets a little tired after the first level. The boys who beat up and bully Sunny have a heavy masculinity vibe, mocking Sunny for being a girl. It continues with the father, who literally turns the children evil. He doesn't want kids and he blames the mother. He's not wrong, it's just a marital disagreement. But it's presented as good, the mother, versus evil, the father. I get that these are specific cases, but when stacked back to back, it gets a little heavy-handed. In a game that's supposed to be about the main character learning to live with herself, there's a lot of negative portrayal of the men in her life. And look, a lot of men deserve to be portrayed in a negative way. I don't disagree with that. Lots of men fucking suck. I just don't think that these specific examples, outside of Sony's bullies, have anything to do with masculinity. But that's just how the game presents it. Continuing that idea, I had a suspicion that the boyfriend was going to be the final chapter, and I was not looking forward to it. The toxic relationship angle and the idea of dependency is interesting. The problem is that the boyfriend is so harsh that he kind of seems like the bad guy, even though what he is doing is the right thing. You could argue it's because your perspective is through the eyes of Kay, the main character, and she views her boyfriend as being overly harsh, so that's why he's being portrayed in this way. But I don't think the game developers were thinking that deeply about it. I think they just wanted to make the boyfriend look like a douche. The problem is that he needs to better himself and work through some issues, and this just destroys the main character. It's partially her own fault for basing so much of her life around him, which is the lesson that she needs to learn. But instead, the boyfriend is portrayed as this horrible wolf monster who's hurting everyone around him, when in reality it's Kay's fault for relying on him so much. The boyfriend in fact turns her evil in some way. Why? That seems unfair. At the end, she loses a part of herself, but she learns the lesson that losing that part isn't bad. Instead, she learned to let go of her old self and her boyfriend and move on to a new part of her life. That should be the lesson. That should be what's important. So how come the boyfriend is such an evil guy? Instead of the monsters destroying her, she lets them be a part of herself and takes away from the destructive nature, turning them into little, cute baby monsters. It's a little lame, but it's a nice resolution to everything that happened. There's not really a lot of gameplay moments to talk about, but that shouldn't really be surprising for a game like this. For a self-helpy type of game, this was one of the more enjoyable ones that I've played. I did feel worn out by the non-stop depressing storylines, but the graphics and the aesthetic of the game make up for some of that. Oh, and finally, there was a sequel spot at the very end of this game. Why? There's no part of this game that hints at the sequel, and I understand the idea is that the boyfriend who needs to go through his own exploration to find himself, but that's just so stupid, it just makes me want to die. Not every game needs a sequel. You don't need to include a post-credit scene. Please don't do this. Anyway, I guess the game's okay. If you love Madden and Call of Duty, don't play this game. If you loved Edith Finch, you're probably gonna like this game too. So that's my review, I guess. Bye.